I'm Lexi, and I've always been raised in church. I saw God do some really incredible things when I was a kid. By the time I was in second grade, I had had 4 ear surgeries, and I shouldn't be able to hear out of one of my ears, but I can because God is a miracle worker. And I've had a lot of surgeries throughout my life because of my ears. And a lot of times, for the longest time, I thought that's where my story began. That's where God was with me. But as a child, I didn't really understand what was going on, and I just didn't really feel God in those moments because I was too young. And so when I was in middle school, my parents divorced, and it was really hard for my family. It wasn't the hardest thing for me. Again, I didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't understand what a broken home would bring to me and my mind and my heart and my family. So it just didn't really affect me, and I didn't really seek God through that. I don't know, it just didn't really bother me. And so when I think about my story, I always think, well, that's my starting point with God. But it isn't. And, my family went through a lot of hard times through that. And we had some other crises go on. But the biggest thing that affected me was my grandma passed away. And she was a rock for me. She was such a spiritual leader. And I found comfort in God for that, because I know I'll see her again. But the time that God really became real to me was at youth camp, the first time that I went. And within a week, I truly experienced who God was for the first time. I was in the middle of switching churches and just a lot of change going on in my life, just a couple years into high school. And I just found God and who He is. And by the end of the week, I fell in love with Him. And that year, I made a commitment to Him that for the following year, I would commit my comfort zone to Him. And that's one of those dangerous prayers. I had no idea what I was getting into, but it was a lot of fun, and it stretched me a lot. I was very uncomfortable a lot of the time, and it really changed me. And it changed how I think and how I love and how I act and how I think about God. And so that's where my journey begins with God, at youth camp. And so I think it was the next December after youth camp. It was the December before youth camp. I had realized that there was a call on my life from God to be a minister. And I accepted that call. From the time I was a child growing up, people would tell me that I was going to do great things for God. And I never really understood them. I never really cared. But finally, God had showed me. And ever since I was a young child, I've been into music. And just instrument by instrument, just taking them all on, playing them all. Love to sing, everything like that. So when God called me to ministry, I just assumed I was going to be a worship leader. And so I started, doing more things towards that, joining worship teams. I'm the youth worship leader currently, and it's been a lot of fun to work with everybody and to just worship God, not just once a week, but several times because of practices and things like that. I get to come together with a family and just praise God. And so it's been a lot of fun. But that really started teaching me leadership skills. So the summer that I committed my comfort zone to God, I also signed up for an internship with my youth pastor. And again, I had no idea what I was getting myself into because it was absolutely horrible at first. I started when the school year began, my junior year, and I hated it. Within the first 2 weeks, I wanted to quit. I wanted to just take a class at the school instead. And it was because I was doing things that I'd never been made done before. I was taking out the trash, and I was sweeping and mopping, and just doing all of these what seemed like stupid maintenance things that I shouldn't be doing. And nobody knew that I was doing it, and nobody cared. And I was so mad at my youth pastor for so long because I was like, man, why isn't he saying thank you? He's making me walk to this dumpster at night after youth to take out the trash, And he didn't even say thank you, you know, but he was teaching me these incredible lessons that I'm so thankful for now about being a servant. And so after I kind of got the hang of, all right, fine, he's not going to thank me, so I'll just do it anyway, so he doesn't have to. And I started having that mentality. I started wanting to help in other places. So I started serving at our local Champ Center meal. And it was hard at first too. You know, the people, you know, when they're going through the line and they're hungry, they didn't really care to talk. Most of them don't say thank you. And so again, my pride had to be smacked down, and I had to realize that I was serving to serve. And so I think the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things that my youth pastor has taught me, is how to truly serve. And that's not to serve to get something out of it, but to serve just to help somebody and knowing that you did. And through the things that he put me through in serving, I really fell in love with serving. And I was doing things for the students that they had no idea about and still have no idea. And I just grew to love them and care for them so much. And they didn't know who I was. And that was really hard for me. But, you know, he kept saying, with time, it will work. With time, you'll make a relationship. You're planting seeds. And I thought he was crazy. And it's almost been a year since I had that internship with him. And the relationships are just starting to grow. But it is so much fun. And he was right. The seeds are growing. And I have friends everywhere I go. And I love these youth kids. I love the people I'm with. And so just through that internship and all of the things I learned about serving and all of the things I learned about youth ministry and about leading, I learned who I am. And I am a leader in God. And I feel like he has called me to youth ministry instead of music. And I'm so excited to be a youth minister because it's where my heart is. But not only is my heart in youth ministry, but my heart is in serving. I just love people. It doesn't matter how old they are, what they're doing, what their past looks like, or where they're headed. I just love them. And some people take me as very gullible. Some people, you know, don't believe that I love the way that I do, but it's true. I just love, and my favorite thing to do is love. And it's just so much fun to be on this journey with God and letting him teach me these things in really, really difficult ways. But just being on this ride and learning who I am, because who I am is God's daughter. And there's nothing more to it and nothing less. That's who I am. That's what I am. And just, you know, continuing to promise him that if he calls me to it, even if it makes me really uncomfortable, because most things do, I'm going to do it. I got to serve this summer as a counselor at the middle school camp. And it was very hard. It was really gross because I got in an old cabin and it was just really difficult for me to be around younger girls constantly. But I loved those girls so much, and it really showed me how important youth ministry is. And it just reaffirmed my call to youth ministry. And I'm so thankful for that. And then I got to go on missions trips and all of these things that just have warmed my heart so much and showed me how much I truly love people. And any opportunity I have to serve, I serve, because that's what I am. I am a servant for God. And I'm so grateful for that. So my story, my testimony didn't start with my tragedies in life. It didn't start when I was a little kid that couldn't hear. It didn't start when my parents divorced. It didn't start when my grandma passed away. My story with God started with God and me falling in love with him. I have to get rid of my awkward first.